My wife said our kids barely knew me. I heard everything from the next room. I stood in the hallway holding a mug when my wife laughed and said, "The kids barely notice him anyway." My hand shook so hard coffee spilled onto the floor. Dark drops scattered across the hardwood I'd refinished last summer, staining the grain I'd spent weeks sealing. The mug was still warm in my palm. I'd just made the coffee. Was walking back to my office when I heard voices in the kitchen. Brenna's voice. And Lucas. I stopped. Didn't mean to eavesdrop, just paused because I heard my name. Then she said it, that sentence, those 6 words. The kids barely notice him anyway. Casual, matter of fact, like it was true, like it was something everyone already knew. My chest tightened, the hallway suddenly felt smaller. I pressed my back against the wall, mug trembling, coffee dripping from my fingers onto the floor, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I'd just heard. My wife, talking about me, like I was already gone. Lucas replied softly, like this wasn't cruel, like it was practical. After the separation, they'll adjust fast. His voice was calm, reassuring, the kind of tone you use when someone's nervous about a decision they've already made. Separation. The word hung in the air, heavy, final. I hadn't heard Brenna mention separation, hadn't heard her say she was unhappy, hadn't heard anything that would explain why Lucas was sitting in my kitchen at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, talking about my kids like he had a say in their lives. "You think so?" Brenna asked. Her voice was quieter now, uncertain. "I know so," Lucas said. "Kids are resilient, and honestly, they'll probably be happier. Less tension. More stability. More stability. Without me, I wanted to storm in, wanted to slam the door open and demand to know what the hell was happening. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen, listening. Because part of me needed to hear more. Needed to know if this was real or if I was misunderstanding. Needed to know how long this had been going on. I didn't storm in. I didn't breathe. I just listened as my marriage was rewritten without me in the next room. Brenna sighed. The kind of sigh that sounds like relief. Like she'd been holding something in and finally let it out. "I just feel like I've been doing this alone for years," she said. "And maybe it's time to make it official." Alone. I'd been working 60-hour weeks to keep the business afloat, to pay the mortgage, to fund Owen's soccer league and Elise's piano lessons, to make sure we had health insurance and a retirement account and a future that didn't feel precarious. And she felt alone. "You're not alone," Lucas said. "You've never been alone." The way he said it made my stomach turn. Too familiar. Too intimate. Like he'd said it before. Like this wasn't the first time they'd had this conversation. I heard a chair scrape, footsteps, the fridge opening. Brenna laughed softly at something Lucas said. I couldn't hear what. Just the laugh. Light, easy. The way she used to laugh with me. I set the mug down on the floor, quietly, and walked back to my office, closed the door, sat in the dark. My name is Silas Morrow. I'm 41 years old. And that was the moment I realized I was already being erased. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat at my desk, staring at the wall, replaying the conversation in my head. The kids barely notice him anyway. After the separation, they'll adjust fast. I've been doing this alone for years. Every sentence felt like a knife. Sharp, precise, cutting away pieces of the life I thought I was building. I'd spent 17 years with Brenna, married for 14, built a business from nothing, so she could stay home with the kids when they were young, worked late so she wouldn't have to, missed dinners so we'd have savings. And somewhere along the way, I'd become invisible. Not absent. Invisible. Because I was there. I came home every night, helped with homework when I could, showed up to recitals and games when work allowed. But apparently it wasn't enough. Apparently I was easy to erase. Easy to talk about like I was already gone. And Lucas was already positioned to take my place. I didn't know when it started. But it had. And I'd missed it. I believed working late meant security, college funds, a stable home. I'd started the business 8 years ago, a small contracting company. Just me and 2 guys at first. Now we had 12 employees, steady work, good reputation, enough income that Brenna didn't have to work, that the kids could do activities without us worrying about the cost. That we could take vacations and save for college and plan for the future. I thought I was building something. Thought every late night and every missed dinner was an investment. In us. In them. in a life that was stable and secure and didn't require us to stress about money the way my parents had. I thought Brenna understood that. Thought she appreciated it. She used to. Or at least she said she did. But somewhere along the way, appreciation turned into resentment. And I didn't notice, didn't see the shift, didn't realize that what I thought was sacrifice she saw as absence. That what I thought was provision she saw as neglect. I was so focused on building the future that I missed the present falling apart. I missed dinners, not birthdays, games, not bedtime stories, or so I thought. I kept a calendar, marked the important things: Owen's soccer games, Elise's piano recitals, school events, birthdays, holidays. I showed up to those, always, even if it meant leaving work early or rescheduling a meeting. I thought that was enough. Thought presence at the big moments mattered more than presence at the small ones. But kids don't remember the big moments the way adults do. They remember the small ones. The bedtime stories, the homework help, the random Tuesday nights when nothing special happened but you were just there. And I wasn't. Not consistently. Not reliably. I'd come home after they were asleep. Leave before they woke up. Text Brenna to ask how their day went, instead of asking them myself. I thought I was staying connected, thought the occasional game or recital made up for the daily absence. But it didn't. And now, standing in my office, replaying Brenna's words, I realized she was right. The kids barely noticed me, not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't there enough for them to notice when I was gone. Brenna smiled in public and sighed at home like I was a burden. I started paying attention, really paying attention, to the way she acted around me. In public, at school events or dinners with friends, Brenna was perfect. Smiled, laughed, held my hand, played the role of the supportive wife. People told us we were lucky, that we had it all figured out, that our marriage looked easy. But at home, she was different, distant, impatient. She sighed when I walked into a room, rolled her eyes when I asked questions, snapped when I offered to help with things she'd already handled. "I've got it," she'd say, sharp, final, like I was in the way. I'd always assumed she was just tired, stressed, managing the house and the kids and everything else while I worked. But now I wondered if it was something else. If she'd stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as an obligation. Someone to manage, someone to work around, someone she was preparing to remove, and I'd been too distracted to see it. Lucas started showing up too often, helping too much. I didn't know Lucas well. He was a friend of Brenna's from the gym. Or maybe a parent from Owen's school. I couldn't remember. He'd been around for a few months, showing up at the house to help with things, fixing the fence, moving furniture, picking up the kids when Brenna's car was in the shop. At first, I thought it was nice. Thought it was good that Brenna had support, that someone was helping when I couldn't. But now, thinking back, I realized how often he was there, how comfortable he was in my house, how he knew where we kept the tools, where the kids' schedules were posted, what Brenna liked for coffee. He wasn't just helping, he was integrating, slowly, carefully, becoming part of the routine, part of the family. And I'd let it happen, encouraged it even, thanked him for stepping in when I was working late, never questioned why he had so much free time, why he was so willing to help, why Brenna never seemed annoyed by his presence the way she was by mine. I'd been blind, and now I was paying for it. He sat in my chair, drove my kids to school, knew their schedules. I came home early one Thursday, unplanned. A client had canceled. I thought I'd surprise the kids, maybe take them for ice cream. When I pulled into the driveway, Lucas's truck was parked in my spot. I walked in through the front door. The house smelled like coffee and something baking. The TV was on in the living room, and there, in my chair, the recliner I'd bought 3 years ago, the one with the permanent dent from where I sat every night, was Lucas. Feet up, remote in hand, watching a game like he lived here. Owen was on the couch next to him. They were talking about the play, laughing, comfortable. I stood in the doorway. Neither of them noticed me. Then Elise ran past, backpack on, hair in a ponytail I didn't recognize. "Bye, Lucas," she called. "See you tomorrow." Tomorrow. I looked at Brenna. She was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter, not looking at me. "He's been picking them up from school," she said. Casual, like it was normal, like I should have known. "Since when?" "A few weeks. You're always working," he offered. "A few weeks." Brenna stopped asking me questions. She already had answers. I used to be the one she turned to. For decisions, for advice, for opinions on the small things. What color to paint the guest room. Whether Owen should play fall ball, where to go for vacation. But somewhere along the way, she stopped asking, stopped including me, made decisions without me and informed me after the fact. I signed Elise up for advanced piano. Owen's switching to a travel team. We're hosting Thanksgiving this year. Not questions, statements, things she'd already decided, things she'd probably discussed with Lucas, because he seemed to know everything. Knew Owen was switching teams before I did. Knew what time Elise's recital was, knew we were hosting Thanksgiving. He was in the loop, and I wasn't. I was the husband, the father, the one paying for everything. But I wasn't part of the planning, wasn't part of the decisions, wasn't part of the life I thought I was building. I was just funding it, and Lucas was living it. I heard my daughter ask Lucas for help with homework instead of me. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was home. In my office, door open, available. Elise was at the kitchen table, math book spread out in front of her. She was frustrated. I could hear it in her voice. I stood up, was about to walk out and offer to help. Then I heard her. "Lucas, can you help me with this?" My hand froze on the doorknob. Lucas was there. Again. Of course he was. "Sure, kiddo," he said. His voice was warm, patient, the kind of voice I used to use with her when she was younger. I listened to them work through the problem together. Listened to her laugh when she got it right. Listened to her say, "Thanks, you're way better at explaining than my teacher." She didn't ask for me, didn't look for me, didn't even know I was 10 feet away. And I realized she didn't need me. Not because I wasn't capable, but because Lucas was already there. Already filling the space I'd left empty. And she'd adjusted, just like Brenna said she would. No one said I was being replaced. That's how it worked. There was no announcement, no confrontation, no moment where someone sat me down and said, "We don't need you anymore." It just happened. Quietly, gradually. Lucas showed up more. I showed up less. He knew the kids' routines. I didn't. He was at the house when they got home. I wasn't. He helped with homework, fixed things, made Brenna laugh. And I worked. Came home late, ate dinner alone, went to bed in a house that didn't feel like mine anymore. No one told me I was being replaced. They just replaced me. And I let it happen. Because I didn't see it, didn't realize what was happening until I was standing in the hallway with coffee dripping from my hand, listening to my wife plan a life without me. By then, it was already done. I was already a ghost, already erased. And Lucas was already there, ready to step in, ready to take my place. And my family was ready to let him. I stopped arguing, started noticing receipts, routines, excuses. I didn't confront Brenna, didn't ask about Lucas, didn't demand explanations. I just watched. Started paying attention to the things I'd ignored, the receipts on the counter, coffee shops I'd never been to, restaurants we didn't go to together, charges on the credit card for things I didn't recognize. I started tracking routines, what time Lucas showed up, what time he left, how often his truck was in the driveway, how comfortable Brenna seemed around him. I listened to excuses. He's just helping. He's a friend. You're never here anyway. Deflections, justifications, ways to make me feel guilty for questioning. But I didn't argue, didn't push, just nodded, smiled, went back to work, and kept noticing, kept documenting, kept building a picture of what was really happening. Because I'd learned something. Confrontation gives people time to prepare, to lie, to cover their tracks. But observation gives you truth, unfiltered, undeniable. So I observed, and I waited. Brenna flinched when I walked into rooms unexpectedly. I started coming home at different times, unannounced, just to see. And every time, Brenna flinched. A small jump. A quick glance toward Lucas, a shift in body language, like she'd been caught, like I wasn't supposed to be there. Once, I walked into the kitchen while they were laughing about something. The laughter stopped immediately. Brenna's smile faded. Lucas stood up, too fast, too defensive. "Hey man," he said, casual, but his voice was tight. "Didn't know you'd be home early." "Client canceled," I said. I didn't smile, didn't explain, just walked to the fridge, grabbed a water, and watched them. Brenna busied herself with dishes. Lucas made an excuse about needing to leave. They didn't look at each other, didn't finish whatever conversation they'd been having. Just acted like everything was normal, but it wasn't. And they knew it. And I knew it. And now they knew I knew. And that made them nervous, which was exactly what I wanted. Lucas knew too much about our finances. I realized it during a conversation I wasn't part of. Brenna was on the phone with someone. I was in the next room. She was talking about refinancing the house. Something I hadn't discussed with her. Something I didn't even know she was considering. Lucas thinks we should wait until rates drop, she said. Lucas thinks about our house, our finances, our future. I pulled up our bank accounts that night, checked the activity. Nothing unusual. But the fact that Lucas had an opinion about our refinancing meant Brenna had told him, had discussed our financial situation, our mortgage, our plans, with someone who wasn't her husband. I wondered what else he knew, what else she'd shared, and I realized this wasn't just emotional, this was logistical, practical. Brenna was preparing for a life without me, and Lucas was helping her plan it. I realized this wasn't an affair yet, it was preparation. I didn't think they were sleeping together. Not yet. There were no late-night texts, no unexplained absences, no hotel charges. This wasn't passion, this wasn't reckless, this was methodical, strategic. Brenna was building a life with Lucas before ending the one with me. She was letting him integrate, letting him become essential, letting the kids get attached. So when the separation happened, the transition would be seamless. The kids would barely notice. Just like she said, Lucas would already be there, already familiar, already part of the routine, and I'd be the one leaving, the one disrupting, the one causing pain. Even though I wasn't the one who'd planned this wasn't an affair, this was a replacement. A slow, careful, calculated replacement, and it was almost complete. I spoke to a lawyer quietly, asked questions, didn't accuse. I called a family attorney a friend recommended, told him I needed advice, not representation yet, just information. He listened, took notes, asked about assets, about the kids, about Brenna's behavior, about Lucas. Do you think she's planning to file? He asked. Yes. Do you have proof? I told him what I'd overheard, what I'd noticed, the receipts, the routines, Lucas's involvement. He nodded. That's not enough for infidelity, but it's enough to prepare. He walked me through my options, custody, division of assets, what to document, what to avoid. If she files first, he said, she controls the narrative. But if you're prepared, you control the outcome. I hired him that day, quietly, paid cash so it wouldn't show up on our joint account, and started preparing. Not to fight, not to destroy, just to protect. Protect the kids. Protect what I'd built. Protect the truth. Learned what silence gives you, leverage. I didn't tell Brenna I knew. Didn't confront Lucas, didn't change my behavior, just kept working, kept showing up, kept being the man I'd always been. But now I was watching. Documenting, preparing. Silence gave me time. Time to gather evidence, time to understand the full picture, time to build a case. It gave me leverage, because Brenna thought I was clueless, thought I didn't notice, thought I'd be blindsided when she filed, but I wouldn't. I'd be ready, ready with documentation, ready with a lawyer, ready with a strategy. Silence also gave me clarity, gave me space to process, to decide who I wanted to be. The man who exploded, who yelled and accused and burned everything down, or the man who stayed calm, who acted with purpose, who won quietly. I chose the latter. Brenna filed first, thought she was ahead. The papers were served on a Tuesday. I was at work. The process server handed them to me in front of my crew. I didn't react, just signed. Took the envelope, went back to my office. Inside was a petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds, irreconcilable differences. Requests, primary custody, the house, half of all assets, alimony. She'd filed for everything. Thought she'd caught me off guard, thought I'd panic, scramble, agree to terms just to get it over with. She was wrong. I called my lawyer. Sheer, filed. Good, he said, now we respond. We filed a counter-petition, requested joint custody, requested the house, requested full financial disclosure, and attached documentation. Photos of Lucas at the house, times, dates, proof of his involvement with the kids, proof that Brenna had been planning this, proof that I wasn't absent, just outmaneuvered for a while, but not anymore. She wasn't. Brenna's lawyer called for a meeting, wanted to settle before court. My lawyer and I showed up prepared. Brenna looked confident. Lucas wasn't there, smart. Her lawyer outlined her requests, custody, the house, alimony. My lawyer smiled, pulled out our documentation, showed them everything, the photos, the timeline, Lucas's involvement, the overheard conversation I documented in writing that night. Brenna's face went pale. Her lawyer looked uncomfortable. My client has been preparing for months, my lawyer said. She's been integrating another man into the family, letting him take on parental responsibilities, planning a separation while maintaining the appearance of a marriage. This isn't irreconcilable differences. This is strategy. Brenna tried to argue, tried to say Lucas was just a friend, that I was never around, that she had no choice. But the evidence didn't lie, and her lawyer knew it. We'll need to reconsider, her lawyer said. They left. And Brenna finally understood. She wasn't ahead. She never was. Custody didn't go how she planned. The judge reviewed everything, the documentation, the testimonies, the evaluations, and awarded joint custody. 50-50. Not primary to Brenna. Equal. Because I'd proven I was present, that I'd been working to provide, that I was willing to adjust my schedule, that I'd been pushed out, not absent by choice. Brenna was furious. She'd expected to win. Expected the default assumption that mothers get primary custody. But the judge saw through it. Saw Lucas's involvement. Saw Brenna's planning. Saw that she'd tried to erase me before the divorce even started. And ruled accordingly. The kids would split time, week on, week off, and I'd be there. Fully, completely, not working late, not missing dinners, present. The way I should have been all along. Lucas disappeared the moment things got real. Once the custody arrangement was set, Lucas stopped coming around, stopped picking up the kids, stopped helping with homework, stopped sitting in my chair. Brenna called him, texted him. He didn't respond. He'd been there for the easy part, the part where he got to play dad without the responsibility. But now it was real. Now it was complicated. Now it was work. And Lucas didn't want that. He wanted the idea of a family, not the reality. So he disappeared. Left Brenna to manage alone. Left the kids confused. Left the mess he'd helped create. And I watched. Didn't gloat, didn't rub it in. Just watched Brenna realize that the man she'd been building a future with wasn't interested in the hard parts. Only the convenient ones. And now she was alone. Really alone. The kids stayed with me. The house stayed quiet. My first week with Owen and Elise was awkward. They didn't know what to expect, didn't know if I'd yell, didn't know if I'd blame them, but I didn't. I just showed up, made breakfast, helped with homework, drove them to school, asked about their day, listened, really listened. We didn't talk about Lucas, didn't talk about the divorce, just focused on being together, on rebuilding, on learning how to be a family again. By the end of the week, Elise asked if she could stay an extra night. Owen asked if we could keep doing this. I said yes, and the house stayed quiet. Not empty, just peaceful, stable, the way it should have always been. Brenna asked why I never fought her. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Brenna texted, asked if we could talk. I met her at a coffee shop, neutral ground. She looked tired, older. Why didn't you fight me? She asked. I did, I said. She shook her head. Not like that. You didn't yell, didn't accuse, didn't make it ugly. Would that have helped? She didn't answer. Just stared at her coffee. I thought you didn't care, she said quietly. I cared, I said. I just didn't want to win loudly. I said because I didn't want to win loudly. I wanted to win right. Brenna didn't understand. Not then. Maybe not ever. But I did. I could have exploded, could have confronted her that night in the hallway, could have thrown Lucas out, could have made the divorce a war. But that wouldn't have protected the kids, wouldn't have protected what mattered. So I chose patience, chose observation, chose strategy, and I won. Not perfectly, not without pain. But I won the way I wanted to, with my kids, with my dignity, with the knowledge that I'd done everything I could to be the man they deserved. Brenna had tried to erase me, and for a while it worked, but I didn't stay erased. I came back, quietly, methodically, completely. And now, sitting across from her in that coffee shop, I realized I didn't need her to understand. I just needed to know I'd done it right. And I had.